And it promises to be a December to remember, everybody. Good morning to you all and welcome to Sunrise Today. I'm Chamberlain also.
Start of a new week. Good morning. I'm Kayla Magwa.
Well, now this is the poetic Chamberlain I'm seeing this morning. Good morning and welcome. I'm Ayo Makinde. Well, I'm going to stay in Lagos for a bit. I'll leave you Abuja guys, there for a bit. But let's take you, if you have been to Lagos and you haven't been to this city in quite a while, well, there are some areas in this city that is going to be a shock to you, like this place on your screen right now. If you know the Lagos-Abeokuta Expressway, and you thought you knew it, by the time you are seeing the Lagos Airport, the Murtala Mohammed International Airport, on your left when you're headed towards Abeokuta, and you see this on your right, you're wondering, okay, what is this? Where am I going or where am I coming from? If you're driving from the airport, this is what you're likely to see. That blue wall is what you're likely to see. And you'll be wondering, wait a minute, what is this? Well, this is the Ikeja train station. And it's one of the transformation that has happened to the city. Behind it, as you can see, is the bus rapid transit, park right there behind it. And behind that one also is somewhere around there you'll find the Ikeja General Hospital. Yes, if you don't know Lagos now, you're knowing Lagos. That's what you're seeing right there on your face. So this is one of the shockers you're going to get. You're coming to the city of Lagos. This is one of the first sights on your face. And you're wondering, what is this that I'm looking at? It is novel. When I was growing up, train stations weren't this beautiful and modern and all. When I was growing up, train stations were ugly. Thank you for all the initiative that everyone is taking to make our city look so much better than it ever was. So yes, this is the Ikeja train station, and it's a lot modern now, and the trains leave on time. No African time. It's GMT. All right? Just so you know. So, Chamberlain, I know you haven't had any experience with the Lagos train, so wait. I don't know, just so you know.
Yeah, I haven't had the experience of spending over 100 billion. Well, that's what it cost. That's what the government did say. Over 100 billion to build all of that. And good to know that it's on schedule when it does. I mean, these days where lots of people have put their vehicles on the side and try to hitch a ride, and train ride will be very, very interesting. And I tell you, if they do have rails connecting cities based on commercial scenarios, I think it will alleviate and make a lot of impact. Cargo trains, how about that? That would not be a bad idea if they do that. But nonetheless, I mean, Kayla, since you've not been to Lagos, I think this will
I have. I've just not been to this train station, and I want to go there. You guys you're selling me short. Ayo, you're not doing well. You're not. But I'm gonna tell you what I know about this train station. Part of the newly inaugurated Lagos Rail Mass Transit Red Line in Lagos. The station is one of 8 stops on the first phase of the Red Line. It spans 26.5 kilometers from Agbado in Ogun State to Uyibo in Lagos, and it's supposed to alleviate the traffic congestion, improve commuting efficiency for residents. And it's supposed to be seamless intermodal transport. And it's also integrating with the nearby bus terminals to ensure this smooth travel experience. I mean, it's supposed to serve 500,000 passengers daily when it's fully operational. And then it has pedestrian bridges and overpass, And of course, the Red Line is part of Lagos border efforts to modernize its public transportation infrastructure, and I think that's the reason why it looks so beautiful. And of course, it complements that blue line that connects the marina to Mile 2. So, very important piece of infrastructure there. 500,000 people a day. That's a lot of help. That's a lot of help. It will take people off the street. Oh, I wish we could copy this everywhere, especially in cities like Abuja where we have a transport problem.
Well, we do have a rail system.
We do, but like one that can cater to 500,000 people every day.
Well,
that would be fantastic.
Even this cannot cater to the population in Lagos. So
yeah, but they said at least 500,000 a day is something. Well, it's better than having people around bus stops in Abuja here, just near us here. Once it's 4 o'clock, the crowd starts, and there is no bus. People are jumping into the back of Hiluxes. trying to find their way, you know?
Yeah, I mean, there are scenarios playing out. Who knows, by this time next year, we understand the scenario will change because they've said that they're building parks where buses, number one chance, in local parlance, which they call it here, because they say that the authorities in FCT say, well, anyone just picks up anyone on the roads without people knowing what's going on.
Yeah,
and the previous transport system that they've had over time, it hasn't just worked. So, which is part of the question we keep asking. We're hoping that whatever system they put in place now, it's going to be, well, not necessarily foolproof, but at least to a large extent address all of these challenges. So it's something that, because the country really had a transport system, really. So that's why some of these policies that they put in place never really achieves the intended objective. But we'll talk about all of that in a moment. Let's take you through some of the dailies this morning. Ayo.
Tax reform bills are still hugging the headlines this morning, along with other stories. Look at the front page of this Nigeria newspaper. Tax reform bills. North-South intensify battle. Ohaneze berates North, says Tinubu's proposed reform will shore up economy. Zulum, passing tax bills into law will have adverse effect on North. The details of that story you'll find on the inside pages of the paper this morning. If you look at the front page of the Nigerian News Direct, passing new bill into law will have consequences. Only Lagos Rivers will benefit. That's from Zulum. Atiku urges transparency, calls for inclusive stakeholder engagement. Deputy Senate President defends bills, dismisses critics as misunderstanding legislation. PDP chieftain warns that new reform could deepen northern poverty, aggravate insecurity. The details of that story you find on page 6 of the paper today. The Nigerian Tribune has tax reform bills. Confusion in House of Reps as APC caucus aborts fixed meeting. Clerk announces suspension of plenary on proposed legislation. Why southern lawmakers are divided. APC NWC keeps mute on lawmakers. The details on the inside pages of the paper this morning. Look at the front page of Daily Trust. CBN to retire 1,000 offers 50 billion naira payoff. They are offering me 97 million naira for 4-year service. 17 sacked directors yet to be replaced. The details on the inside pages of the paper. The Guardian newspaper has this one. Labour begins nationwide strike, cites empty promises by governors. That story you find details of on page 6 of the paper this morning. The Daily Times newspaper, why Nigeria is underdeveloped. That's from Primate Ndukuba, says Nigeria instrumental in transforming our continent. The details of that story you find on the inside pages of the paper today. The Abuja Inquirer has minimum wage. Pupils in FCT public schools endure third strike in 2024. NLC orders strike over wage row. Find the details of that story on the inside pages of the paper today. New Telegraph, concerns over leadership recruitment process as Kuka's submission triggers debate on leadership question. The details of that story you'll find on the inside pages of the paper today. Business Day newspaper has 8 routes to NGX's 100 billion naira market cap. It's the big story on the front page of Business Day, and the details continue on the inside pages. A not too pleasant one on the front page. Bandits on revenge mission suffer casualties in Zamfara. Troops destroy hideouts, recover ammunition in Taraba State. The details of that story you'll find on the inside pages of the paper. If you look at the front page of the Vanguard newspaper, PH Refinery, tanker drivers at war over delay in product loading. Only NNPC trucks loading petroleum products. That's from PHCR. You are economical with truth. Newpeng insists. We will patronize all refineries. That's from Meman. We've submitted application. That's from Petron. We look forward to lifting from Port Harcourt Refinery. That's coming from Ipman. The details of that story you'll find on page 5 of the Vanguard newspaper this morning. And these are some of the papers we have for you today.
Well, those are the headlines this morning, but I'm going to take this story from This Nigeria because it's one that talks about complaints that a lot of us have about certain services. Now, the FCCPC is on page 14 of the This Nigeria newspaper. The FCCPC is engaging GT Bank, MTN, Airpeace over rights violations. The details are on page 14 of the This Day newspaper. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because this is, I said, This Nigeria newspaper. Thank you very much. I mean, the reason why I'm bringing this up is because there are lots of complaints about the services that we're getting when it comes to telecoms, when it comes to banking. These are issues. Depleted data. No explanation as to why your network is off. Charges that you don't understand. There's so much going on in these areas. And the FCCPC, that's the Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission. And this is an agency that I think we need to put a little bit more spotlight on because they are the ones who are supposed to be looking out for some of these complaints that we have as Nigerians. They're launching a major inquiry into widespread consumer complaints against leading players in the banking, telecoms, and aviation sectors. And I see that Airpeace Limited is going to be addressing allegations of exploitative ticket pricing. So this is something I think we should be looking out for. The days and the dates are written there. The inquisitions will begin on December 3rd, 4th, and 5th. And I think it's important that as people, we focus and listen to what it is that is going on and see if these inquisitions actually have any results at the end, or is it just another situation where we're chasing our tails? But, you know, maybe if we do insist on accountability, maybe when these inquiries happen, they'll be forced to give us some kind of result and we can see better service. So those inquiries will begin on the 3rd, 4th, and 5th. And it's more details on page 14 of the This Nigeria newspaper.
As much as that sounds good all by itself, but there are questions as to, so do we have a system in place to ensure that the system that kind of kicks in automatically when this kind of complaints happen? Because look, if you are looking for complaints in this sector from Nigerians, whichever platform you request it from, you will see dozens, or am I saying dozens, thousands, well, maybe hundreds of complaints. So what is the NCC's role here? What about the regulatory authorities from the banks themselves? Yeah. So if FCPC is going to be doing this, yeah, as much as it's good all by itself, but I'm just looking to see how a system is in place to ensure that such that even the operators themselves know, oh, wait a minute, I have to be cautious here. I have to treat the customer as king.
Absolutely.
In the real sense of the word.
Which is why this inquiry by the FCCPC is very important. Because now we have to start looking, it's little steps, Chamberlain. I know that many things are not in place. There are many things that do not make sense. Because this is supposed to be automated. We're not supposed to have an inquiry. We're not supposed to have a discussion about it. It's supposed to be automatic that when I have a complaint, there is some kind of system that ensures that my complaint is addressed immediately. But that's not the case.
So the people know about this?
So that's why we're putting it out there. Let us understand what's going on. And the FCCPC, really, we need to start looking at them a little bit closely. Because we cannot keep having situations where we complain about the same things over and over again. That's the reason why I said earlier, I hope this doesn't turn into one of those wild goose chases where they do an inquiry and nothing comes out of it. There has to be some kind of way that we can get accountability from these businesses. As people who protect, as the organization that protects the Nigerian, we have to start doing the right things. You have to start doing the right things. The inquiry is a good thing. It's a good thing. But we need to see the results of it and put actual systems in place that address these issues head on, so we don't continue having meetings and nothing comes out of those meetings.
Well, speaking about doing the right things, the Academic Staff Union of Polytechnics want the federal government to do the right thing as well, because they have said, having given them 11 days prior notice, as reported on the front page of The Guardian here today, they, ASUP, say they are embarking on a warning strike beginning today. So they say we've given them all the notices that there can be, but they haven't listened to us. But we are doing what we have to do to call attention. They said there were about 11 items that they had listed that the federal government attend to, but that has not happened. Well, we're hoping that the minister of Education, the new Minister of Education, who I think is going to be in Lagos at this point in time. He's in the field trying to ensure certain things happen. So maybe, just maybe, he might get wind of this if it's because of that transition. But now they will need to address this as soon as possible, because it's going to be, I mean, this is supposed to be a December for them to remember. But if they embark on strike, it's and then who knows if government says no work, no pay, that's not going to go well. So they need to address this as soon as they can. Ayo.
Part of the things to also address, Chamberlain, is a building concern, if you ask me. On the front page of the Vanguard newspaper this morning, somewhere at the top left, it talks about how Nigeria struggles to raise crude oil production. That's according to an investigation. Now, why is that a concern? Because we have a number of refineries coming up in Nigeria, in quick succession. As at this moment, we have about 10 or more. I'm sure that in our next conversation, we'll be able to find that out. Now, the ones that are already either working or upcoming, if you add them up, they will require about 1.2 or 1.3 million barrels of crude to remain functional as at this moment. But how much do we produce? We produce less than 2 million barrels per day, to the best of my knowledge. If there is other figures, then we can come up with them. Because, so I think it's about time we began to give consideration to these issues. Right now, we have a 60,000 barrel per day PH refinery working. We have a 650,000 barrels per day Dangote refinery working. Well, even though I'm not sure whether it's getting up to 650,000 barrels per day. We have one upcoming. We have Walter Smith, which is just about 5,000. We have another one in Port Harcourt, 150. One in Kaduna, 110 barrels per day. We have a Bua refinery upcoming that's promising 200,000 barrels per day. So I'm just wondering, where will they get crude from? So if we are having problems producing crude, are we saying that these local refineries will need to go out of the country to import crude? Otherwise, what's going to happen? Because we know that crude is, for now, one of our major mainstays in the country. So a concern that I think we should just give attention to. Meantime, let's take a short break, and when we return, we start some conversations.
Welcome back to Sunrise Daily. As you've seen there, we've got Anthony Ogbigwe here with us. He is an engineer, but he's also the president, Nigerian Society of Chemical Engineers, among several caps that positions he's occupied in that industry. Good morning, sir. Thank you for coming on today.
Good morning.
Well, I know there are many questions about Chemical Society, in terms of what they've been up to over the years. But I think I'm just going to cut to the chase about the Port Harcourt refinery, in terms of all the back and forth that's gone on. And sometimes one wonders what goes through the mind of Nigerian engineers. As a matter of fact, there were comments also attributed to those who you thought should know, chemical engineers, saying that Port Harcourt refinery, it's not working, things are not going the way it ought to be. And then there were accusations of blending, partly imported products as opposed to refining, and the argument just goes on. Now, you are someone who is well versed in that industry and beyond. Could you give us your impression of what you make of all of this?
Thank you very much. I am here as the president of the Nigerian Society of Chemical Engineers, and we are professionals who have worked in this industry for many years. And based on our knowledge, we are able to answer some of those questions. From the beginning, I want to say that there is a deficit of trust that exists right now in our society. And that is the reason I think why there is so much doubt about statements being made.
Yeah.
But based on our findings and our contact with our members who are working in this sector, in the refineries included, the old Port Harcourt refinery is actually operating.
It's working.
It's working. Yes.
Have your members been there?
Yes, yes. There are actually two refineries in Port Harcourt. There's the old refinery, otherwise called Area 5, and then there's the new refinery, which has areas 1, 2, and 3. There used to be an Area 4, but that has been mothballed. So the old refinery, the Area 5, is the only one that was commissioned last week. And based on the reports that we have received, we can indeed state that that refinery is running and has been loading out products.
So when you say it's working, could you break it down a little further? What kind of products is he loading? Are they PMS? Are they blending? Are they refining?
That question I need to deal with.
Please.
Because when people ask that question, I get a bit surprised. It reveals a lack of understanding of how the refining.
And this is fueled by those who should know.
Yes.
So those who don't actually have the picture should be go with what they see and hear those experts.
So hopefully we can explain that.
That's why you're here. Go ahead, sir.
In the refinery, I wish I could take a board and just actually make some sketches for you. Crude oil comes in. It's the feedstock. That's what we call it. And then it comes into the refinery and goes through distillation. It is separated into various products. The crude oil that we all talk about is actually a mixture of very many products, very many things, okay? But in the refinery, what happens is we put it through a column, and then we get out from the top gas. Then we get straight run gasoline. Some people call it light naphtha. Then we get heavy naphtha. Then we get kerosene. Then we get light gas oil. Then we get heavy gas oil. Then we get from the bottom atmospheric residue. These are the intermediate products that come from the crude column. Now, these products go for further processing, okay? And in the old Port Harcourt refinery, there is only one further processing unit, the catalytic reforming unit. That is what produces high-octane stuff. Now, PMS is not a product that comes off the column itself. PMS is a blend. So when you get that light naphtha that I talked about, then you have heavy naphtha. The heavy naphtha you send to this secondary processing unit called the catalytic reforming unit, and there it is reformed. Why is it necessary to reform it? Your car and my car, we use PMS. That's what we use to run a car, PMS. And PMS is actually about 91 research octane number, 91 run. Yes. Light naphtha on its own is not good enough to run in your car. So we send the heavy naphtha to this catalytic reforming unit, which boosts the octane to about 95, 96. In the new refinery, we actually have another plant called the FCC. You may have heard about FCC a lot. The FCC is a plant which takes even that heavy gas oil I talked about and the atmospheric residue and transforms them into more gasoline and more diesel.
So it has more capacity than the old one.
Oh, yes. So it does more conversion. And by the time you get these various blend stock, high octane stock, you blend them with the lower octane stock, the light naphtha, to give you PMS. Then the diesel is also a blend of LGO and some stuff from the FCC. Okay? So that is why when people say, are they blending or are they producing? It's a misunderstanding.
Well, I think the question really from critics is the Port Harcourt refinery, and it's a very simple question that they tried to get from the NNPC. Is this a crude oil refining facility or is it a blending facility?
It's a crude oil refining facility. Yes. And when you refine the crude oil, you produce light naphtha, and then you produce, if the CRE is running, you produce reformate, which is high octane stuff. To get your 91 octane, you have to blend light naphtha and the reformate to get 91 run, which goes out as PMS. Okay? Then in the new refinery, you do the same thing. You have more conversion units. The new refinery is a more efficient refinery than the old refinery. The same thing with Dangote. Exactly. If you recall, when Dangote first started operating, they were only selling diesel. The reason is very clear. They had not completed their downstream units, which will give them high octane stuff, which they can blend with the light naphtha, which is the only thing you can produce from the crude distillation unit.
Sorry, could you speak to this, which also circulates out there, but about Dangote Refinery? Yeah. Is it such that his own kind of refinery is that they cannot rely solely on the kind of crude Nigeria produces? They also have to import another kind of blend of crude to blend with ours to produce the final product.
Yeah, the Dangote Refinery is a much more modern refinery. So it has been deliberately designed to be able to process different types of crude. That's the advantage it has. I mean, it was just commissioned this year. The old refinery was completed in 1965. The new refinery, we call it new, but it's not that new. It was actually completed in 1989. Kaduna Refinery was completed in 1980. So those are relatively old compared with the Dangote Refinery. Yeah.
I want to be able to talk a little bit about the future of these refineries in the country, especially because I know you've been one of the proponents for the privatization of a lot of these businesses. Talk to us a bit about that. We heard from, at least from the authorities sometime last week, I think, that the plans are underway, you know, to do that to this sector, to privatize this sector. Talk to us a little bit about that and what the benefits will be. The truth is, when it comes to the oil sector in this country, it is such a murky situation. For many Nigerians, just throw their hands up in the air and don't really care anymore. But why should it be privatized? Because I know that that's something you've been pushing for.
Yes, indeed. As a society, we have been pushing for privatization of the refineries because that will enable them to function efficiently. There is a lot of quick decisions that need to be made in the refining sector. If you have a refinery running, funny enough, refineries are supposed to be continuously running. They're not supposed to be down. So if you want your refinery to be profitable, it has to be run as a profitable venture. And we would like the government to free the refineries by divesting significant equity of the government holdings. Presently, it's 100% owned by the government. But I think that the refineries will become more efficient if the government divests its equity to below 50%, and then let the 51%, like the NLNG model, let the 51% be held by private sector entities. Then you will see efficiency in the refineries. You will see that immediately there's a failure in the refinery, a shutdown of a pump, a breakdown of a pump or anything, immediately they will replace it. Right now, NNPC needs to go through a long process. You know, you go through a process internal in NNPC, then you go to the government, you go to CBN, you go to raise letters of credit, and all this is inefficient. Also, we need to attract the best hands into the industry. The petroleum industry is not an emotional industry. I mean, you need to have seasoned, competent persons, and you need to be able to attract them and retain them. So, if the refineries are privatized, that will really enable them to run efficiently. Nigeria LNG is a company which is running very efficiently today. And that is because the government agreed to reduce its equity from the original 100% to 49%. And then 51% was then held by Shell, Total, and Ajib. And you see today, the board of NLNG makes the decisions. And the company and the people working there are free to function in a way that creates maximum value for the country.
The cash cow that this sector is, you honestly think that the Nigerian government is going to agree to remove their hands from it so it can run efficiently?
Can I say something which might shock you? It will actually generate more money for the government than it is doing right now. Because when you privatize and the company functions as a private entity, it yields more revenue. Eleme Petrochemicals is a perfect example of that. LMA Petrochemicals was not running efficiently until it was privatized. Now, prior to that, there were all sorts of difficulties that NNPC was experiencing in terms of getting approvals for its plans. And that made it inefficient to run. When the decision was taken to privatize it, it immediately freed the company to excel. Within the next year, after it was privatized, the company made a profit of $1.5 billion. Billion. And the government got its tax revenue in addition to dividend revenue. And then the state government owns 5% of LMA Petrochemicals. The community, LMA community, owns 5%. And they have been so happy with the setup, with the result that they now protect the company. All this, one of the difficulties we are having right now is pipeline vandalization and so on and so forth. When the communities and the states and the private entities have the stake in what is going on, those pipelines will be protected.
Because I understand a group has also advocated privatization of the pipelines,
yes,
such that they can make it more effective.
Absolutely.
So
that is exactly what we have recommended. In actual fact, there was a national refineries task force that was put together in 2012 of seasoned professionals from across the industry, and they made the same recommendation that not just the refineries, but also the depots and the pipelines be privatized, because that will free these assets. You know, there are 5,000 kilometers of crude pipelines and product pipelines which are not being used efficiently because everybody says government thing is nobody's property, and they just treat it anyhow. But if we all see it as our property, you know, and it's a privatized entity, then it will be more efficient and more accountable.
Pardon me to take you back to this Port Harcourt refinery. When your team went there, to what capacity is it functional? And if it eventually gets to 100, what will be the difference from what we have now?
As at the time when it was at about 60%, okay? That is actually because 60% is the minimum turn down at which you can run a refinery efficiently. When it's below 50%, you are struggling. That is why when they first started up, they were struggling until they went up to 60% and then they stabilized. And it's been stable. And then we understand they have gone up to 70%. Their target is 90%. So there will be more products. However, go back to what I talked to you about before, about this issue of high octane stuff and low octane stuff. There is a unit called the catalytic reforming unit, which we understand that they are making plans to begin to bring that unit into function this week. Once that is done, then you will see that the production of PMS will rise, because then they will have enough more high octane stuff to blend with the light naphtha. Right now, some people were making allegations about a cracked C5 being the only thing that was being. That is because, in actual fact, they were getting cracked C5 from LMA Petrochemicals. Remember, NNPC owned LMA Petrochemicals when it was built. NNPC owned the refinery. So all these plants were linked, such that the cracked C5, which is something LMA does not need, was being sent to the storage tanks.
So not that it was being imported and then doing the final product.
It was being sent to the refinery, from where they could either export it or blend it with the refinery's production.
Because that was the issue. People said that it was the crack C5 that was being blended, and that was what was being released.
Crack C5 was being blended with light naphtha.
Yeah.
So it was half of the story people were seeing because they didn't really understand. Like I've explained to you, there's production of light naphtha, okay, and just also production of kerosene, and also production of diesel.
All right, Ayo's got questions for you. Ayo, go ahead.
Well, thank you, Chamberlain. I'm going to start from what you talked about, Chamberlain, when you were asking about the operating capacity. If you don't mind, so you want to expatiate a little further on what it means to operate at 70%. What's the advantage and what are the risks? Now, this question is coming at the heels of what some people have said, some also members of your society, as we have also heard earlier, that it is not sustainable and it is not, the refinery is not sustainable and that the refinery is not profitable. So if it's operating at a 70%, operating capacity at this moment is 70% according to the NNPCL, what does that mean? How sustainable is that in the long run? And how profitable is that refinery as a result?
In our view, profitability of the refinery will be determined more by having all the process units running, okay? Because when you bring in crude oil, you are paying for the crude oil. And then just imagine in your mind that you produce some LPG, you produce some gasoline, you produce some diesel, you produce some fuel oil. It is when you sell all of these products profitably that you make enough money compared with what it costs you to pay for the crude oil that you brought into the plant. So our view actually is that the refinery will become more profitable when all the process units are running. Now, for the old refinery, that means getting the catalytic reforming unit back into operation ASAP, because that is when you really begin to make money. Then the next answer to your question will be, the higher the capacity at which you operate, the more money you make, because then you are selling more products and you are getting more revenue and optimizing. This strict answer is you must optimize the value of all the products that you make. So have all your units operating and then go up to a higher capacity. You improve your margin. I should add something more. You must be able to evacuate efficiently all what you are producing. That is also important.
Interesting angle there, but that last point that you just made, because there is also the issue of, okay, exactly how much market share does the PH refinery have? At least the one you call the old one that is operational right now. To the best of our understanding, it's a 60,000 barrels per day capacity refinery operating right now at 70%. You may want to give us the numbers, what that implies, and how much of the market share of our petroleum products that refinery is supplying. That is coming at the heels of what we've heard Mr. Bismarck Ruwani say, that that's just about plus or minus 5% of the market share, market supply of PMS and a number of other products. So speak to us about that.
That is indeed very correct. Like you have rightly said, the capacity at 100% of the old refinery is just 60,000 barrels per day. When we had all the 4 refineries operating, their combined capacity was 445,000 barrels per day equivalent. So at the time that they were running efficiently, they were meeting all the needs of the country at that time. And this was back in 2005. They were meeting all the needs of the refinery and continued to meet it up till about 2010. But then gradually we had to start importing more. But if you go back to that 2010, for example, when the refineries were meeting all of our local demand, if they were all operating at 100%, then you will see that the small old Port Harcourt refinery, the contribution to that was really less than 10% at that time. But now, when the demand has even grown further, it's less than 5%. So it's not going to make a significant impact, but it is something because it reduces what we need to import. Fortunately, we have the Dangote refinery, which has started operation and with a capacity of 650,000 barrels per day. So indeed, we will see a situation where we should be able to meet all of our local demand. But let us not forget that the Dangote refinery was built as an export refinery. So if all the 4 local refineries begin to operate, then we will be in a situation where we can concentrate what they are producing on meeting local demand. Then the balance will be met by Dangote, and then Dangote will export a lot. And by exporting a lot, we will then earn more foreign exchange, which will be good for our economy. And hopefully that should lead to improvement of the value of the naira.
Well, there's also one criticism that's come at the heels of this refinery that we're celebrating, that it hadn't operated in 25 years, and consequently, it's not sustainable, that it might have some issues, over time. Maybe that is one of the issues that, is you would want to speak to. You've run that refinery before, so you can give us some backstory about some of these claims and what needs to be. First of all, the understanding, is it true I hadn't operated for 25 years until now?
The old Port Harcourt refinery was commissioned in 1965 and ran until the new Port Harcourt refinery was completed in 1989 and continued to run after that. There was a fire that happened in 1989, so the refinery was out for a short while, and then it came back into operation at about 1991 and continued running right up to 2000s and thereabouts. So if you say that indeed it has not been running for the past 25 years, that's not quite correct. But anyway, probably 20 years might be more like it. But that shows you one serious issue, that it has been down for so long. So we should compliment, indeed, those who have succeeded in bringing it back into operation, because it means that it's taken a lot of effort. Any refinery plant which has been down for 20 years would necessarily have developed a lot of problems here and there. It's like a car which has not run for 20 years. You want to bring it back into operation, you need to do a lot of work. And that is why when it was finally ready to run and they attempted running it, the reports we got was that, there were initial hitches and they had to go and fix this thing that was leaking because over the years, rust, corrosion has taken place. So indeed, we should compliment those who have been able to bring this plant back into operation. Now, that is the same thing that happens anytime a refinery is down. This is why, normally, like I said earlier, a refinery is designed to keep running and never down. You only shut down a refinery for turnaround maintenance after 2 or 3 years, and you start it up again within 45 days so that the refinery keeps running. And as long as it's running, you encounter fewer problems. But once it is shut down for a long time, then you have challenges when you try to start it up. Okay. So really, we should compliment those who have succeeded in bringing it back up, but then challenge that, let's make it more sustainable. Put it in the hands of, let's privatize it.
Well, there's something that you said earlier. The first statement you made was about trust. That the government it's difficult for people to trust whatever comes from any government source. As you also rightly said, the NNPCL is an organization owned by Nigerians being held in trust by the federal government. So it's only natural that to a significant extent, when people talk about anything that comes from government, there is that doubt. How do we build that trust back? So when you hear, when in the build up to this, I can imagine, having, you speaking about with passion about people who continue to express stuff that they understand and stuff that they don't understand. And then you are just bemused because you know what happens to be. So how do we begin to build that trust back between the government, the NNPCL and the people? Because as you said, we have a 440,000 capacity number of refineries, and here we are struggling with trust with the smallest capacity refinery.
Let us all, as Nigerians, commit to speak the truth, and let us have the commitment to do what is best for our nation. The challenge we are having a lot of times is people tend to look at things in terms of what's in it for me. But if we look at things in terms of what is best for our nation, then maybe from that perspective, we will talk differently. If there is a challenge we are facing, let's say we are having this challenge, rather than the attitude of, oh, we're on top of it, and you don't explain that you're having a challenge. You say you're on top of it, and yet you're having a challenge. People know you're having a challenge, but you say I'm on top of it, they say, oh, I don't think this guy is saying the truth.
I mean, I want to be able to get, what you said while you were talking to Aya there about, years of non-operation and some of the, because what we heard, one of the rumors that we heard over the weekend really was that they were not churning out any products and there were issues going on. But what we heard from the management of the refineries, there are technical issues and they're trying to solve these technical issues to enhance capacity. And then we started hearing from Ipman saying that the cost is about 60 naira more of the product, that is 60 naira more than what they were getting from Dangote. And these rumors continued over the weekend, just so we can get some kind of clarification on this entire drama and stop all the rumor mongering that we see online. Some clarification on what it is that's happened, some of the technical issues that they said they were sorting out, and this pricing issue.
Technical issues, like I said, when you start up an old plant, you are inevitably going to face challenges. Pumps, you need sparing of the pumps. If a pump breaks down and you need to fix it, then of course it affects your ability to churn out your products. What we hear, because when we had that comment, we tried to verify what was going on, was that they had some challenges with their loading pumps, which they needed to deal with, so that they could be able to blend the light naphtha and the cracked C5 and be able to transfer to the loading bay. Many people are not aware the refinery is actually separate from the depot. Yes, the depot is under a different body. Okay, now so the refinery has to do it to blend, transfer to the tanks of the depot. Then the depot will now load out. So that transfer, there was some hitch, and so what we will expect is that they have solved that problem now, so they should be able to resume loading at the depot. I believe that it should be possible to verify, stations that have received products, and from what the question you asked, it means that there was loading taking place, and then the loading seemed to have stopped at the time, and then people concluded that the refinery had shut down anymore. But it's this transfer. I believe that as we see them get that refinery back very stable and all things working, we should see a smoother operation. We hope that what the government has announced about intending to privatize the refineries, that they really deliver on it.
Will it really impact pricing?
Pricing is actually a function of what it costs you to produce and what it costs you to pay for the crude oil. Many people do not know that in actual fact, the price of crude oil accounts for almost 80% of your OPEX. Okay?
Crude oil, the one that we have locally.
But the crude oil belongs to the federal government of Nigeria, not to the refinery. You have to make that distinction. The refinery, this is why if it becomes a private enterprise, then there will be more accountability. Because the
price will not be impacted.
The price will be impacted eventually, because once there is more accountability and more efficiency, then the refiner who produces at a lower cost will be able to sell it at a lower cost, and the public will go and buy from the stations that are lifting from that refinery.
But when I say that, I mean, I know you know that for the average person out there, yes, this is how it works in terms of those separation of powers. But they say, look, we're in this country, this crude belongs to us. So whatever you do over there, all they want to hear and see and know and experience from the pumps is
available and lower price. That's it. That's it.
But you say it's not that simple.
Unfortunately, it's a cost to us as a nation. Let's be honest with ourselves, okay? It's a cost to us as a nation. Let's look at the overall efficiency. Honestly, in Europe, in the US, and in Asia, the governments give subsidies to industry so as to enable them compete out there in the world, okay? If you go to Europe, for example, around Easter time, winter time, when the cost of heating goes up for most people, the government steps in and says, hey, you can't charge more than this. In the UK, they have what they call off-gen, that regulates price of gas that is supplied to homes so that people can heat their homes and be able to not die during the winter. So there is a cap on how much they can charge the customers. Now, our government, should look at the entire gamut of the things that we as a nation need to do and decide how to deploy its resources. Right now, Nigeria is borrowing massively. Our debt servicing is higher than 90%. So that means we actually don't have a lot of money to play around with. That's the honest truth.
I wanted to be able to, because our correspondent in Port Harcourt, you just sent us a message right now, and he says, and I'm going to quote him exactly, he says, the loading depot is controlled by Nigerian Petroleum Storage Company, NPSC, and he said it was functional when I went there yesterday.
Great.
So that answers you.
Okay,
so for that refinery, the old Port Harcourt refinery versus the new one, or maybe not versus the new one. So if and when the new one comes on stream, what kind of impact is it going to have? What will we see and how do we feel that impact?
It will be very significant because the two refineries will have a combined capacity of 210,000 barrels per day. It will be very significant because it's able to supply, it can meet the needs of most of the southern part of the country. And then let's envisage a situation where the Warri refinery also comes into operation. There's a pipeline from Warri refinery that links up to Kaduna refinery. You can send crude up to Kaduna refinery, and then they will be able to supply even the northern part of the country. So we will see a massive increase. If the 5,000 kilometers of distribution facilities are brought back into operation, you will see a massive improvement in our nation. Because right now, our roads are failing. Many people don't know that the roads are failing, principally because of the axle load that goes on those loads. When these tankers are loaded, the load, the impact on the roads is massive. So they lead to,
takes us back to the refineries.
Yes.
I mean, the pipelines.
Yeah, pipelines.
So if we can get the pipelines up and running, even if it's privatized, it takes off that pressure from the roads and possibly...
And then our infrastructure will become more efficient.
All right. We do thank you for coming on this morning. Anthony Owigwe is the president, Nigeria Society of Chemical Engineers. That's why he was here. But he's also served as a former MD of Port Harcourt Refining Company, also former GED Refineries and Petrochemicals. Thank you very much for coming on today, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Coming up now is Business Morning.
Well, hello and welcome to the first trading day of December. And definitely looking at the equities market in November, it did drop by 0.1%. That was for the month of November. So I guess it wasn't a November to remember. But let's see, maybe a Santa Claus rally can make it up to the investors. Let's get a check on stories now that set your agenda. We started with oil market. We're seeing oil prices up, supported by strong factory activity in China as the world's second largest oil consumer, and heightened tensions in the Middle East as Israel resumed attacks on Lebanon despite a ceasefire agreement. So we're seeing all of that playing into the oil market. Brent, $72.41 a barrel, a big 0.79% jump for Brent, and WTI not left out of the party with a higher rise there, 0.85%, $68.58 a barrel. We'll see if
WTI can get back above that $70 level. So we see some survey showed China's factory activity that expanded at the fastest pace in 5 months in November, boosting Chinese firms' optimism, just as U.S. President-elect Donald Trump wraps up his trade threats, and that was last week. Both benchmarks suffered a weekly decline of more than 3%. So we might see a recovery for the oil market this week, going by this first trading day. To the FX market now, we see for the NAFEX window, there was appreciation of about 19 naira, 49 naira to fix at 1,663 naira to dollar. That was up 1.16% for the final trading day of November. Then for the NFRM, 1,672, weakness to end the month, 1.69% down. That's for NFRM. So analysts are still expecting, the same levels we saw that was last month into December, barring any other changes and interventions from the Central Bank of Nigeria. We know Governor Cardoso had a lot to say, over the weekend about the FX market and the whole banking industry in general. All right, now, we see most of the fintechs, they've sent out emails today saying that they've begun charging electronic money transfer levy. That's a 50 naira levy on transfers of 10,000 naira or more paid into, maybe it's a PalmPay, OPay, MoneyPoint accounts, a couple of fintechs out there. It started November 30th, 2024, as mandated by the Federal Inland Revenue Service. Most of the fintech platforms have sent out emails to their customers emphasizing they do not benefit from this levy as it is remitted directly to the federal government. So look out for your transfers out of most of those fintech apps and see if you're charged that 59. All right, to other stories now. The Securities and Exchange Commission has announced a new requirement for capital market operators seeking to renew their annual registration. As part of the renewal process, CMOs will now be required to submit evidence of their registration with a trade group. The statement made available to us there, we see the signed by the SEC's Director of Registration, Exchanges and Market Infrastructure Department, that's Hafsat Rufai, was issued on behalf of the Commission's Director General. According to the statement, the renewal process for 2025 will begin January 1st, 2025, adding that the deadline for completing the renewal process, that's for January 31st, 2025. So all CMOs applying for renewal of registration are required to include their 2025 annual receipt from their respective trade groups as part of their application. So there you have it. New rules there, registration rules for most of the CMOs. All right, to other stories right there. We see Swiss cement maker, that's Holcim, will exit Nigeria's business through the sale of its nearly 84% stake. Yeah, that's 84% stake in Lafarge Africa, and it's sent to China's Huaxin Cement. The sale price is about $1 billion for 100% stake. Said the sale aligns with Holcim's strategy to focus on high-growth regions, including the upcoming spin-off of its North American business, which remains on track for a U.S. listing in the first half of 2025. In November 2023, Holcim, they say, it had signed deals to sell its businesses in Uganda, Tanzania, and further advancing its strategy to consolidate leadership in core markets as a global leader in innovative and sustainable building solutions. So other stories, the Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission has launched a major inquiry into widespread consumer complaints against leading players in the banking, telecommunications, and aviation sectors. This inquisition, which will begin on December 3rd, 4th, and 5th, respectively, are intended to address issues of poor service delivery, exploitative practices, and potential consumer rights violations. We'll definitely be looking out for that. And I did mention the CBN governor was busy over the weekend. Well, the governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Mr. Yemi Cardoso, has been explaining how some of the reforms of the Apex Bank align with efforts to establish a stronger and more resilient African financial architecture. Mr. Cardoso believes reforms like the transition to a unified exchange rate framework, removal of fuel subsidy, and recapitalization of deposit money banks have contributed to strengthening the economy of the continent. He was speaking at the 5th African Union Extraordinary Session of Specialized Technical Committee on Finance, Monetary Affairs, and Economic Integration. I was in Abuja. Take a listen.
Very much, Excellencies.
African finance ministers and heads of central banks across the continent have converged for the 5th African Union Extraordinary Session of the Specialized Technical Committee on Finance, Monetary Affairs and Economic Integration. The meeting is convened under the theme, Building a Stronger and Resilient Africa Financial Architecture. One issue that came to focus during the meeting is Africa's debt profile. According to the Africa Development Bank, Africa's public debt has surged by 170% since 2010, exacerbated by several economic issues. Figures from the bank state that this year alone, Africa is expected to spend $74 billion on debt refinancing, with annual cost projected at $10 billion from 2025 onwards. The bank adds that Africa pays 500% more in interest costs when borrowing from international capital markets compared to borrowing from multilateral development banks like the AFDB. The figure reveals the paradox of the debt and development financing on the continent, and Nigeria's finance minister, who is represented by the director in charge of special projects at the Federal Ministry of Finance, calls for collective action to tackle the issue.
Status of implementation of sustainable financing of the African Union underscores the importance of Africa working collectively in a more coordinated manner in shaping up our economies in such a way that we will not be dependent on aid from international partners. It emphasizes that only through collective endeavors can we navigate through the challenging times that face us.
The governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria echoes this sentiment, emphasizing the impact of Nigeria's fiscal and economic reforms.
The removal of fuel subsidies has created fiscal space for strategic investments, while targeted policies to enhance diaspora remittances have contributed to an improved external reserve position.
Over the next couple of days, the delegates are expected to deliberate on these pressing issues, and the resolutions adopted at the session are expected to set a transformative agenda for Africa's economic future.
All right, now to our first conversation. As the year draws to a close, Nigeria's travel industry, well, it's gearing up for the festive season, with the country's economy showing signs of recovery. For the third quarter, travelers are expected to take advantage of the holiday period to explore local and international destinations. Well, let's explore the December domestic and foreign travel demand outlook in Nigeria. And join us for that, we have Mr. Gbenga Onitilo, the Vice President B2B at Wakana. Joining me right here in the studio. It's great to have you. Good morning.
Thank you very much, Larry.
Yeah, so I guess that Christmas feeling, I don't know if it's there, anymore, because as a kid, I remember back then, once you get into the Ember months, you start to feel it. You start to smell Christmas.
Yeah.
I've not felt that in a long time. I don't know if that's the same experience with you.
Well, it's the same experience with us. We've been feeling it in the travel market, because as way back as September, you've seen a bit of demand on local travel. That people booking forward bookings as far as December. You have pricing going up because demand and supply issue kicked in. So you have a lot of people doing group bookings, traveling all across Nigeria, regional travel and domestic, more of it. International travel seems to have slowed down a bit because of high pricing, then also visa restriction issues. But presently right now, I can tell you for a fact, there's a high demand on domestic travel and regional travel all across airlines in Nigeria.
Right, and I'm wondering, because we're always looking forward to that, dirty December, where we have some of them out there that just got back, coming into the country, and we have some going out, for the holiday. So what trends are you seeing so far?
The trend we'll see, you will have a lot of arrivals from places like the UK and the US, looking at exchange rates playing a lot of factor in the markets. So they are the advantage, spending ahead of the pound makes 30 December fun for them. And compared to us, on the other side, that inflation affects buying power, spending power, and also it has impacted on pricing of tickets. Because you and I know very well, as of last year, December, exchange was about 800 and something. Now it's over 1,700. So when you look at that, you're looking at Naira devaluation over 82%. When you look at that, it impacts capacity to buy, capacity to spend. Then don't forget, people are planning January, school fees, rent, a whole lot of things. So 30 December, people have to play it smart. So that's why a lot of people are planning domestic travel. So the benefit factors of these will be the hotels, the hotel industry in Nigeria. You have a lot of demand, room nights scaling up at the moment. Because you have a lot of shows, plans for December, a lot of entertainment, festival spread across Lagos, Abuja, Jos, you have Calabar. So there are a lot of travels going on, and the people that will benefit more are all the regional and local travelers.
Right, and so the December might be dirty, but not as dirty as some.
I can guarantee it's going to be very dirty.
It's going to be very dirty.
It's going to be very dirty.
Okay.
Because a lot of the demands I've seen coming from bookings, requests from people in corporate travel business, planning end of the year party, a whole lot of is going on right now. So there's a heavy demand on domestic travel.
Right.
So everybody just needs to position themselves to be able to benefit from that.
And I can imagine, with the weakness of the Naira, I'm sure, in your industry, where you see weakness, for the Naira, it's going to definitely impact the business.
On the other side, there are two sides to it. There's the side where you have all through the year, you've seen corporate business growing in bounds, because the business people will definitely travel. As the economy begins to recover for the first time, great recovery, over 3.5% recovery. If that continues into January, you're going to see a bit more demand in terms of international travel, because now people will have more capacity to spend. The businesses will have more capacity to plan around all their logistics, because now you have a lot of foreign investment coming in the finance, oil and gas, fintech space. So when you have all those kind of things happening, and the pressure on the Naira begins to reduce, knowing fully well air flight services is impacted, it's controlled basically by dollar. When anything happens in dollar, it impacts the business. So you are talking about buying of spares, you're talking about pricing of fuel for aviation, everything is premised on dollar. So any impact on devaluation on the Naira, impact on the dollar, it affects the pricing of tickets.
Right, and we did hear from the central bank governor. He did say the Naira has been quite stable since June.
So for us, selling tickets, I can't say fully it's been quite stable. It's been a bit inconsistent, because you have the pricing. In a week, you got pricing modulation close to about 3 or 4 times, even in a day. That you are paying for a ticket of 1.7 million, and you didn't pay as when you're supposed to pay. As at the time you're now paying, it has increased by another additional 10 naira. 10 naira has impacted, and then when you factor that on millions that you're paying, increase the price. So it's not really been stable over in a couple of months. It's spiked up, but we're looking at all the outlook that have been talked about for January. If it comes to be, we're able to stabilize. I think we'll have more demand for travel. And don't forget what IATA is also saying. Africa is the ground where they play for travel. That's where you have the best time to make money, is in Africa. That's where you can get the best yield.
Right, and looking at domestic travel, so far we know the airfares are really high, at this point, and we've had calls from some Nigerians that, okay, you know what, we want to also use the roads at this time, but you now have, the insecurity issues. How would you say it's playing out right now? We've seen improvement, on that side of the travel.
I'm talking about road travel now.
Yes.
Road travel, I think there's a bit of improvement. If you see when you look at all the brands that run, the number of vehicles you see on the road moving. When you move at night, you see them moving at night. So because if the consumer capacity to purchase international travel, because international travel, let's just be frank with ourselves, international travel is the upper echelon. It's the top of the pyramid. It's not for everyone. What percentage of the population do travel international? Maybe 5 to 10% of the general population who will do that. And it's the same thing all over the world. But the most effective one we have to develop are the likes of road transport, rail. Those are the things we need to enhance, because that's where you have the mass population playing in. And if we don't look for a way to subsidize those sectors, the thing is about subsidizing the sector. What kind of waivers, tax relief you're going to give to the players? Those are the things that determine how affordable road transportation. Then we talk about insecurity as well. So what are we going to do? Are we going to empower the states, state legislation that is going to help the state to be more focused on policing? Because what we have is the true federalism we have in terms of policing, I don't think it's going to be more effective for us. We have to start looking at the devaluation of power to the states. That's what's going to ensure that we have great security across all of Nigeria.
Right, and looking at this new administration, we would have a new Minister of Transport. What are you seeing so far from the Ministry of Transport? Have you seen some, initiatives that are boosting, the industry?
Some of the initiatives we've seen is talking about the CNG issue. We've not seen how much of impact that has done. So if you are looking at that and you're not looking at mass transit in terms of having more buses on the road. So but the funny thing is, how much of road is motorable in Nigeria, if you're going to look at that? So we should be looking at how we are going to develop our rail system. The most powerful one, those are what the likes of China, Ethiopia, all these countries have been able to be one of the most key components that we have to develop beyond road. If that happens, that you can connect all the inner cities into each other, then it saves a lot of travel. Now that you're having trains going as far as 526 km/h in the likes of Japan, so I can be here going to Abuja in 2 hours or 3 hours, you're in Abuja. So those are the things I think in the infrastructural development we're going to do. I think it's more for me. I think we should invest more in rail, find private sector partnership that's going to make that work, because government can actually fund it. We have to start looking at who are we going to partner with. Is it China? Is it India? We have to go Japan, people that have the capacity to do all this connect, that have done it all across the world. That's what we should be thinking about, beyond road transportation.
Beyond road transportation.
Rail transport, for me, seems to be one of the safest. One of the most safest that you can talk about. And when you're doing that as well, you have to connect it to the ecosystem of road transportation. Because when you look at what is happening in UK, for example, it's one of the most sophisticated train system in the world, but you have it connected to every bus terminal. There's no bus terminal you're looking at that your train station is not connected to. So those are the things we have to start looking at. It's a complete ecosystem.
And I'm sure you're optimistic about 2025. I want to believe.
2025, if you don't keep your hopes high, I wonder what else you will do. We have to keep it high.
We have to keep it high. Thank you so much. It was great having you. That was Mr. Gbenga Onitilo, the Vice President, B2B at Wakana. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
All right, we'll take a quick break. Now, when we come back, we'll head straight to the markets. That's in a moment. Just stay with us. All right, let's get expectations now for Nigeria's fixed income market. And joining us, we have Mr. Chuka Nwachukwu, Group Head, Balance Sheet Management at United Bank for Africa. Great to have you. Good morning.
Morning, laddie.
Yes, and happy new month. Yes, it's December. Talk to me about November, for the fixed income market. What trends did you observe, and what are you seeing for this new month?
Well, just as CBN has indicated, by increasing the monetary policy rate, and of course, the increase in inflation, investors obviously demanded for higher yield. And that's what we saw in the fixed income market, especially on the T-bills market. Seeing the yield moved between 150 basis points to about 250 basis points. So we've seen yield moved from the beginning of November, from the long end of the curve, which is the 1 year, moved around 21% to 23.5%. That was the last auction rate for the 1 year. And so this trend will continue going into December.
That was the last hike for 2024, got that 25 basis points. Going into 2025, do you think we're going to feel the impact of that 25 basis points in the fixed income market?
I think that the market has priced it in. I think that the reason for this hike actually is because of the inflation figure that came out. The last inflation figure came out at 33.88%, and that's obviously, I believe, that affected the MPC decision. If you look at the trend, it's obvious that the rate hike regime, or period, if I might use the word, has actually have been moderated, and I believe that the MPC in the next meeting will probably be looking at either retain or drop rate due to some of the policies that have been put in place, and then seeing that some of these policies are working. Gradually we are beginning to see the end of the inflation, a rise in inflation. by the time some of these policies start working, which obviously have started working, but of course it's difficult for one to feel the impact now due to long period of hike. And so I believe that first quarter of next year, second quarter of next year, MPC will begin to reduce the monetary policy rates.
All right, we'll definitely be looking out for that. But how would you describe liquidity in the month of November, and what are you seeing for December?
So with the indication again from CBN indicating that they will continue to tight, liquidity obviously will continue to be one of the major points. The system liquidity has always been moderated due to the inflation, and so I do not see anything that significant change in terms of liquidity in the system. So as it is now, this liquidity in the system is greatly controlled by the CBN, which of course rightly so due to inflation. And so nothing will definitely change going into December and then end of the year. Last week, FAC came in. About 1.2 trillion came in, and then as I speak to you now, virtually all is out of the system. So that is how how much CBN see liquidity in the system as a major problem, and then they will continue to mop up.
All right, let's look at the Naira, how the Naira performed in November. We see the first trading day of November did close at 1,666 Naira to the dollar. Then we fast forward to the end of November there, 1,672 Naira. So we're seeing a drop there about 0.36%. So looking at December, what's your outlook for the Naira, and is it still demand outpacing supply that we saw play out in November?
Yeah, so what has happened so far, just like every other aspect of the economy, it's all about demand and supply. And so when the demand outweighs supply, then of course you see that the price will go up. And then when when the supply outweighs demand, you see that the price will drop. So looking at the past 2 months, October, November, we see that quite a lot of inflows came into the system, and so we saw the exchange rate maintain the stability around 1,600. And so with the with the current, with the next year budget, which the federal government has pegged around 1,400. I see that the CBN going into the new year will obviously we try to maintain that price stability within that range. And so December is also a month where you expect a lot of spending, and then of course on the flip side it also works on in our favor, because of course we have people coming to loved ones coming from abroad, and then of course they bring in some of this foreign exchange, and then of course once we have inflows, and then that will also help to temper the demand. So I do not see it go beyond 1,600 as it is now, or at most maybe 1,700, 750.
All right, I guess 30 December will also impact the markets with all of that inflow we're expecting. But we saw the first drop in Nigeria's foreign reserves last week after months of accretion. What are you expecting for our FX reserves?
So, the drop is actually quite minimal. But if you watch what has happened, again over the past month, you see that CBN actually maintained the volume. We haven't seen much drop, neither have we seen much increase. Part of it also has to do with the Naira denominated, the dollar bond, which CBN has just concluded. Of course, that aided into the reserve, help to boost the reserve. Though we are not producing enough, and then of course that's on the oil side now, and then we are not saving it. We're not saving enough. We're not earning enough. We're not saving enough. So that would have increased if that has been the case. But then I believe that within this range is currently around 39 billion. I don't see it go beyond this range within the next 2 months, or neither do I see it go significantly lower than this, even though CBN is also trying to defend the naira using the the foreign reserve as case may be sometimes. So, but again, I think that they've been able to maintain a bit of stability, and then if we increase the oil production, of course, we see increase in the reserve.
Right. I guess so much to look out for in the month of December. But thank you so much for breaking it down for us, Mr. Chuka Nwachukwu, who's a group head, balance sheet management at the UBA. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ladi.
All right, that's the show today. That's for Business Morning. Markets are open now. We'll give you a snapshot of what's playing out at intraday. That's at 1 p.m. on Business Incorporated. I'm Ladi Williams. I hand things over to the Sunrise Daily team.
All right, welcome back to Sunrise. Mr. Oji Philip is here with us. He's a tax analyst. Thank you for coming on today on the program.
Thank you very much.
So the talk continues about the tax. The National Assembly also weighing in. The governors have been briefed severally, so they're still going back and forth as to should they stand it down, how will it play out in the public hearing, which appears to be the next stage in the National Assembly. So for you, what do you think?
Thank you very much for having me. Well, like you can see, this is what I've been telling the National Assembly for the past 7 years. Whatever you see that's playing out, I say it earlier, that the way we are going, at a point we will be choked because we are not doing the right thing. The bill I am pushing to do, if it had come to be, you will see all these things. There must be a platform to build the economy of a country to be effective, efficient. Because if the platform is not prepared, you will be seeing all this moving from one point to another. The reason why I may like to educate us or sensitize Nigerians is that the quarrel between government and the people, always in tax in every country, is that it's a concern of two people's business. The person paying you and the person collecting the tax, which is government. When they are not in one line or they are not in tandem with what they want to do, there will be trouble, which is what is going on. My friend, Professor Taiwo Edele, we know each other for over 4 years before he was appointed as a president committee chairman, all right? So I live in Singapore. Most of these countries don't have natural resources, but yet they are fine because they have equitable, efficient taxation system that will guarantee people paying tax with ease. You know, see that the inflow will come on its own because enforcement in tax is expensive while voluntary compliance is cheap. Okay. So whatever thing you are seeing in the National Assembly now, until they do the right thing, otherwise this bill will not go. What is the right thing? The right thing to do was, there are a lot of things you want to go and do you have to go to the Constitution to repair or to amend or structure it, because it's like putting a cart before the horse. All right. So there's something they must do. Whatever grievances, what is it that they must do? What's this thing? What they should do is that let them not be in a hurry to pass this bill. A lot of ambiguous policies are there. I'm an expert too. Like now, people discuss much about this sharing. I don't like going there because I have no money. We are running a deficit budget, so what we should be talking, what can we do to make money, which is what my concern is. Now, if you look at what is going on, National Inspector General for Tax Crime Commission, which is the bill I authored, I come from Singapore. I was pushing it for 8th Assembly, 9th Assembly, 10th Assembly, and they passed first and second reading in the 9th Assembly. Then this time around, it has passed second reading again by the Deputy Speaker, Right Honorable Benjamin Kalu, with 8 other members from different parties, because he called me. I told him to call people from different political parties. This is a national concern. It's also supposed to be... What was your bill seeking to correct? It's seeking to come and have a tax inspector. For what purpose? For the purpose of connecting with the OECD tax inspectors without border. Isn't that stipulated in this recent bill? It's not there. The only thing what Taiwo did was to remove, because he said, send your memo to us, which I did, but he took 2 of my recommendations, he took them. What he accepted was Nigeria Revenue Service. I said, it's Nigeria people's money, Commonwealth, not federal.
Just in nomenclature.
No, let me come now. Is it not there? They call it one of the bills. So I'm telling you why you should know that I know what they are doing. The only thing is that some of my recommendations, they didn't take it. Like the ombudsman you see there, conflict resolution, is one of the departments in the agency I attend that we should create. Like the United States, they have Internal Revenue Service and Treasurer Inspector General for tax administration. You see the difference? Because if you go to UK, they have His Majesty Revenue and Custom, and you have House of Common Treasurer Committee. In Australia, they have Australia Tax Office. Then they have Inspector General of Taxation of Australia. That even will make sure that some of these monies that we are, like now, we can access our fair share in our brothers and sisters who own company. Some people are very close to, like Dangote, rich as that Dangote. So, but this is the area I'm telling you that we can make over $50 billion in a year.
All right. What is
and all the sense you see them.
What is the difference? I mean, what's the difference between what the ombudsman, which they've adopted, will do, and what the inspector, which you're proposing, will do?
Yeah, I say the ombudsman, let me tell you, what I'm advocating for is independent revenue inspectorate agency of Nigeria that will have 6 departments. The first department, investigation, audit, inspection and evaluation, mission support that will look like police inside, because you cannot hire outside police if you want to do the right job. It's a collective job. Then office of the ombudsman and office of the chief counsel. So for him to remove only the ombudsman and put further revenue, can somebody oversight his organ? You have to be independent. I called him and say, you are wrong. You don't supposed to do that. Nigerians are concerned to know why are they paying and they are saying they're not seeing money. People are already paying with their blood and you're complaining you have no money. You're adding money from 7% that was difficult to pay to 10, then 12.5, and which means you are saying your trouble have not started. I don't like it.
Let me understand what you want. What you're advocating for is an independent ombudsman.
Independent inspectorate agency. The ombudsman is a department.
Okay, so what does is that because you believe that the FIRS is government controlled? It doesn't have the ability to be independent and fair?
No, that's what I mean.
Okay, so what do you need an independent one for? Why don't we just tweak a few things in the FIRS?
Which is, I will tell you, please, can we take a case study? Because this is I'm teaching people. In the United States in 1919, they created CID of IRS, carry gun, inside IRS. They created, in 1921, they created GAO, Government Accountability Office, inside IRS. In 1956, they created Ombudsman of the IRS, inside IRS. In 1956, they created Taxpayers Advocate. All this is, you will be doing it, but yet you will see that people will still be telling you. So far, the Commissioner of Internal Revenue Service of United is still the person to tell you what to do. That is still one-sided because the concern of the taxpayers is very important. Their perception is pivotal.
One thing you said in the beginning of this conversation, sorry, sir. One of the things that you said in the beginning of this conversation was that you wanted these tax bills, because I want us to focus on that.
We can do that, yes.
You were saying that the bills should be put aside for now.
I didn't say so.
You said that there's something that should be stepped down for now because there were ambiguous areas that needed to be fixed.
Yes, but if you allow me to finish this place, you'll get me well.
No, I want to be able to get you in succinctly.
Okay.
What are these ambiguous areas that you feel need to be addressed? Because what we're hearing over the past few weeks is that the issue is this derivation bit. That is the part where the governors are very upset, and that's what we saw the NEC also having issues with. So what areas do you think need to be tweaked, and what do you make of these arguments about derivation?
Okay, you see this is, I'll call it sharing, because that's the only thing that Nigeria loves doing. How will I share what you don't have? To come and charge us 10% to go and pay our services in the where we borrow money is what the thing means. Otherwise, we can charge 5% and make more money. I'm against that additional money. I'm just telling you the areas that are not correct. If you have done what I tell you to do now, you may go back to 5% or 3% like Ghana. If you make international money worth $50 billion, do you need to be adding money in tax? It's wrong. And I know they will listen to me. Already I've addressed Ariwa Elders Forum the other day. I went, they allow me to talk. Can you imagine an Igbo man to go and talk in the Hausa circle? They listen to me. So what I'm saying is that we are talking about Look, let me tell you, anything you call progressive tax, anything you call purchasing, maybe all these charges and whatever is regressive. Nobody should deceive us. Whatever thing you charge somebody, it will tally it to whatever he's doing. And when the commoners or wage earners will buy, that thing you see there will still reflect in what they are buying. It's against us. So I know that we can make money without necessarily adding money tax. I'm an expert too.
So what point is it I say you wanted to finish?
I wanted to
You said you wanted to finish a certain point so that we can get you clear.
Our finishing is when what she says is one important. What I'm saying is that when United States did this thing till they were the highest in the world in adding money in their tax, I'm trying to tell you a case story that you will be able to know that we can survive. I'm sure of that one. Now, because of this thing, in 1998, they now said we will scrap IRS. We don't know what they're doing, and some of them said no. Let us create an independent inspectorate agency of tax that will be a watchdog to the legislative side of government, because there's nothing a legislator or in Committee on Finance in National Assembly will tell you that he will do to oversight federal revenue. The information is not there. Meanwhile, if you do the right thing, you will see that the agency I'm talking about will copy a report to National Assembly. This is what is going on, because what the agency does is to collect receipt. We are now in an electronic world. So whatever thing you pay to federal level, you hit somebody's independent server. Are you getting me? That independent server will make people to believe in the system. People will believe in the system. Let me tell you, Nigeria don't believe in federal revenue. They may be pretending, but that's the truth.
Let's look at...
let's have tax inspector, and the money will come. You stop what the system will stop.
Let's look at this, some of the clauses in this tax bill before the National Assembly.
Okay.
I know you said that some of those things need to change, but if you look at this one, I hope you can see that clearly. Look at the screen. So these are some of the sections of which they want to adjust. So this is the VAT area, the incremental VAT area, which the government wants to adjust a few things.
Yeah.
So we're going to come to allow you shed a little more light on this particular part, because it's a critical area in what needs to be done. But before then, I'd like to let our viewers on the DSTV platform know that we're going to join the National Dialogue on Local Government and Constitution Amendments, which is happening live. But for our other viewers on the other platforms, Sunrise Daily continues. So, all right, so talk to us about what you've just seen. The VAT, that section.
I didn't see anything.
Oh, okay, guys. Can we have that slide back
if
again?
You like, if you have it there, read it there.
Okay, so let
read.
So you can't see this?
No, I don't see it.
Okay, so what you're seeing here now is section. Okay, go ahead and read it for me.
Okay, section 146 progress to proposes to release the value-added tax from 7.8% to.
Can you see this?
Okay. So propose to raise the value-added tax from 7.5% to 10% by 2025, increase to 12.5% from 2026 to 2029, and 15% from 2030. Also introduces a derivation-based VAT distribution system. And that actually brings me to my next question, which has to do with Governor Zulum, who we heard just recently say that, look, it's only Lagos and Rivers that will enjoy this situation. The Southeast will not, the Southwest will not. What do you make of that stand? Especially, and it's not just him. We've heard this from lots of northern governors as well.
Yeah, I would like to deal with that additional money. Because you don't talk about, this sharing is not supposed to be an issue yet. They are just, I don't know why they bother about this money. There's no money. Let me tell you.
They're not sharing.
I'm saying
okay, the increase.
The increase.
Okay.
The increase. You don't discuss about the increase, you're not doing it.
We'll get to that.
But it's the first thing I saw.
Okay,
go ahead.
So go ahead.
So the first thing is that moving from 7.5% to 10%, I am not in support because it won't bring money. There is no accountability and transparency in the taxation system of Nigeria. If GDB can withhold tax for 8 years, their VAT for 8 years, are they actually covering up? Just what happened in the National Assembly, there was a heat-up agreement. Go and pay that money. They say we don't know that what do they call it? They say the system did not separate it. They were thinking they are paid. Let me tell you, until we have account of what we are collecting, we are wasting our time. The only thing the person can do it is in petrol tax. That is independent in another person's office. Another one you want me to treat, I will treat it. But I'm still telling you that, talk about the money first. Now, you see these people, they are saying about whether Lagos will take everything. I don't want to it's a discussion that we can come together and do. And somebody try to force it to people. I don't like it. I would have rather support if 19, even if 5 governors are saying no, they should be listened to. The subnational, right? So let us see that we may not pass this bill this year, that some people want it. It could be maybe May, because these things you see, they go to treat this particular derivation of whatever. It's still in the constitution what you will do before you even talk about doing it. It's not about the bill itself. I'm sure my friend did not know the implication of the concerns inside the constitution we have. That will have to be treated first before you talk about doing this. I'm not against anybody. What I'm thinking is that, what do we tell Nigerians so that they and government will come in one table? Because right now they are quarreling. I have the capacity to explain what will make them to know what each other can do.
Okay, we heard a lot of people say they have the capacity, but just hold on.
Not bringing money.
Ayo has got some. Ayo has questions for you. Ayo, go ahead.
Chamberlain, listening to you here now, Mr. Ojephilo, some people will be wondering exactly what side of the divide you are. On the one hand, he's your friend. On the other hand, you don't like what he's doing. Anyway, as you said, it's about Nigeria. Now, there are those who are proponents of this bill for one particular reason. It will favor the younger, the poor, the vulnerable a lot more than the rich. And there are those who are saying that it's because the so-called rich will be taxed. That is why there is so much noise, so much hullabaloo about the issues being raised in the bill. How do you respond to that?
Well, at the end of the whole thing, I'm thinking the tax is much regressive than some people don't know. The rich, whoever is saying that the tax regime now is against the rich also is not saying the truth. The truth of the matter is that it was the poor that will still go suffer it. Another thing is that I normally call my friend, like I told you before, we talk, we disagree on points, and he knows what I'm saying. We should talk about way to get money. And again, to add VAT from 7.5% to 10 will compound our problem. I know that one. And even all this...
just 1 second, sir. Compared to what happens in other climes, if you look at the tax system, tax regime that we have in our country today, compared to what happens in so-called developed countries, what is the difference that you see? And what do you think we need to do? Because there are those who are saying, look, what happens in other climes is what the effort that is being made here, and yet everyone is kicking against it. So if you would compare the tax system in other climes to what we have in the country now and what is being proposed, what are your thoughts?
My opinion for more than 8 years or 7 years now was that tax inspector, which is to say, let tax be transparent. Let the owners of this tax, the National Assembly, which is the parliament, and the Nigerian people,
no, Mr. Oji, I want you to speak to the specific question that I asked. If you would compare what happens in other climes.
Let me compare America.
Please, go ahead.
Let me tell you what I've been saying before I get to this place. Let me tell you. In America, they have Internal Revenue Service, and they have Treasurer Inspector General for Tax Administration, TICTA of the United States, that will enable you to be able to tax people like Binance. Like now, Nigeria don't have power to tax cryptocurrency. Even the so-called legal framework they are preparing, the mechanism is yet to be there because we are nowhere to be found. Because the president said it when he sent the vice president to hunger. He said, can you people give us a platform we can join you to be able to tax cryptocurrency? It shows that the president didn't tell him there was something called OECD, UNDP tax inspectors without border. If you don't have tax inspector, independent tax inspector in your country, you cannot be part of that sharing, information sharing that will give you this money I'm talking about. That even the other day they called me in the UK and said the money you are calling 50 billion, Nigeria is losing over that type of money. We are losing close to $400-something billion in a year. We may not even be paid. We pay broad-based tax, small tax that people will pay money without going to give them tax waiver. All this tax waiver is a scam. You give someone about the tax waiver, you used to import chemical and sell and not even having a factory. This is the type of thing we are running here. I am telling you until we are transparent to make the money. We talk about this sharing. I don't want to dwell in sharing for now. Don't want.
But you haven't really spoken, you haven't really answered the question that I asked. Because there are those who are, a good number of people are saying, okay, some believe that this is good for us, some believe this is not good for us. But both parties go to other climes and they see that things are very, very expensive in these other climes. And they know that to a large extent, some of it is as a result of internally generated revenue in these other climes. And a lot of it is about taxations, about levies, about sales taxes and all those things. That's the question that I'm asking. How close are we to those other clients?
I will clear it now. Let us use a Ghana case study to teach you what I'm saying. Are you listening to me? Now, let me tell you. Ghana have been, about 3 years, not up to 3 years now, their VAT was 17%. You didn't give them money. Until they launch Foreign Account Tax Compliance Act that will give you money in dollar. Mr. Dedeji said the other day that they are only generating naira in their revenue. Only oil and gas give them dollar. How will you be trying to cushion the dollar rise by borrowing money? We can make over $50 billion. This is what I want you to understand, sir. Why is Ghana going back to 3% VAT? Is it not because they make international money in tax? Nigeria don't generate anything internationally in tax. Don't we have brothers and sisters who pay their taxes overseas? Are they not more plenty than Ghana? I will not stop shouting because our people are dying. Increment in tax is zero. I don't like anybody adding money to what we are passing through right now. That's what I'm saying, and I need to talk to the governors I know this station can do that for me. Let them come, let me teach them. I will school them. I know it. They are governors, they are not tax experts. I am a tax expert. We will charge low price and get more money. Do you know the meaning of getting $50 billion, that is something trillion naira? Will you not pay salary of 500,000 naira minimum wage? And if the thing is expensive in the market, people will be able to buy. I even want to meet Judge later this week. Let me tell him that he should join me. Let us get tax inspector without border and get money. And our people will feel free and do their business.
All right, let's wind down with this one. What section of the Constitution did you say needs to be adjusted before they address the tax bill?
I mean, I'm not a tax lawyer. I can't climb it to come here, but I tell you, I went through it. Even Taiwo will not argue it with me.
So what did he say, the part you went through?
That thing you see there is saying something that need to address, because if you don't do it, what happened during
what did he say?
The Constitution?
Yeah, the part you say they need to address.
You have more than 3 or 4 clauses. I don't want to quote anything. I'm telling you that if they don't work on the Constitution, they may not be able to do this.
What parts do they work on?
The derivation. Because the area of increase, I've said I don't want it. It's not good. It's not even going to work. It's not good for us. But the derivation of where the money will be and where the money will not be, it's an issue here, which I'm in my thinking, I'm saying that we are just sharing empty treasure. We don't have money.
Are you talking about section 163 or 165?
If you put me there, I won't go. I can't do that here. I'm telling you,
Philip Oji.
There's something called, that place, you go there, you see it.
All right, Mr. Philip Oji, tax analyst, thank you for talking to us.
Thank you very much.
All right, there you go. That wraps up the show today. We do thank you all for watching. We'll see you next time. I'm Chamberlain, so goodbye.
And before we go, just 2 things. Just so you know that the malaria vaccine has been incorporated into the routine vaccination for children, and it's in Bayelsa and Kebbi states, and they're pushing for it to be around the country, so we're looking forward to that one. And of course, this is the anniversary. Today is 1 year of the Tudumbiri incident, Chamberlain. And we're hearing from the Kaduna State government that they rebuilt that community. So we'll be following up on that story. But I want to thank you very much for being with us on the program. I'm Kayla Magwa. Have a great week ahead.
And I'm Ayo Makinde. Do have a great, beautiful, and productive week.